thank you everyone for coming, and thank you especially to you, Deputy Governor Karahan, for joining us. I know you have quite a busy week in DC. In fact, I think we'll be meeting again in a few days. But today our conversation obviously focuses on the CBDC projects that have been taken on by your institution. So I thought as a first question we could simply talk about where you are with your CBDC project, your pilots, and what your plans are for the next few years.
Of course. First of all, I thank the Atlantic Council and the Digital Dollar Project for organizing this exciting event. I'm sure we'll learn a lot from each other during these 2 days. And as for Türkiye, we initiated our research and development activities on CBDC in 2020 with the proof of concept studies. And these involve testing the applicability of various distributed ledger technologies into CBDC. And following the successful completion of the proof of concept studies, we officially launched the Central Bank Digital Turkish Lira Research and Development Project the same year. So the project necessitated significant and diversified technological capacity, and for that purpose we began the first phase of the project with the contribution of the active involvement of leading national technology stakeholders, and that really facilitated the development process. And we completed the first phase of our CBDC project this year in 2023, and it involved the initial testing of strategic and critical technologies along with limited closed-circuit pilot tests. And based on the results of these tests, we will continue with advanced phases. Phase 2 will be initiated soon, this year or in the beginning of the next year. And I can say that exploring CBDCs has been a significant undertaking for us, but we assumed an iterative yet flexible approach in our quest for CBDC studies.
And obviously, many things are yet to be discovered on the uses of CBDC, what you devoted to. But one question that comes up a lot in our work on CBDC, and I think over this conference, will be whether you see, in your imagination about it at this point, it mainly being used domestically to facilitate transactions within Türkiye, or whether you can see a cross-border function for it.
Right. I think this is a very critical question, not for only Türkiye, but for many countries studying CBDCs. And obviously the interest in CBDCs vary significantly based on the motivations and needs of individual jurisdictions. But I'm sure all of us have significant questions to address, and I'm sure we'll discuss all of these during this event. But when I think of the potential benefits of a CBDC, I examine them from a very simple economic perspective, demand versus supply. And yes, some central banks might be willing to provide or supply central bank digital currencies, but where is the demand for them? What is in it for users? And in other words, where and how do supply interact with demand? So I think this is the main question that we should answer. And to be able to answer this question, we can focus on two fundamental issues related to the functions of money. The first one is obviously using CBDCs as a store of value. So the question is, can CBDCs effectively substitute cash or commercial money? Is there genuine interest in them or demand for them? But for the sake of your question, I will be focusing on the second function of money here, which is using CBDCs as a means of payment. So again, the question is, can CBDCs effectively serve as payment systems, or can they substitute existing fast payment systems? Yes, in countries with less advanced digital infrastructures, digital banking systems, CBDCs can play the role of bridging the gap. But for others, with a well-developed system, CBDCs must offer something extra. And from the perspective of users, this could be lower transaction costs or anonymity, and these are the issues that central banks should work on. And right in this context, one potential benefit that stands out to me is the use of CBDCs in cross-border payments. And as countries explore the implementation of CBDCs, facilitating cross-borders through CBDCs becomes a compelling factor. And I think this might be where the future of CBDCs lies. And as for Türkiye, yes, we have had some preliminary studies on retail CBDC, but I also believe that the real business case for CBDC could be the cross-borders, in the cross-border setting, considering that Turkey has an advanced digital banking infrastructure.
Thank you. So if I could just take you back maybe to what we broached upon in the first question, which is some of the challenges. You are considerably more advanced than many central banks in your pilot project. You've already discovered some of the challenges that arise when trying to create a CBDC. Without wanting to push you too much on sensitive detail, we're just curious what challenges you've run into, and perhaps some advice you might have for central banks that haven't advanced as much as you have. And it can be about cross-border, but just in general as well.
I think the main and general lesson that I can share, or challenge that I can share, and I'm sure everyone here would agree on this, would be that exploring CBDCs involves a complex decision-making process in a rapidly changing digital landscape. So pursuing an iterative approach, as I said before, and a flexible approach really matters. But on the technical front, I can also say that starting early does have its own advantages. Conducting multiple pilot studies with diverse technologies is essential here, considering the area of distributed ledger technologies available. And central banks need to develop some in-house digital technology. And in this context, I think collaborating with some technology-related institutions is quite helpful. We have established a platform where, as I implied before, where leading national technology stakeholders can contribute to our work on CBDC, and this definitely expedites the development process. And lastly, another takeaway that I can highlight would be working simultaneously on the technological front and the other aspects, regulatory and economic aspects. This is efficient because these processes complement and feed each other. But most fundamentally, figuring out the main use or benefit of a CBDC is a key issue here. Some might think that it will be all right on the night, but I think the key issue here is planning ahead.
And I think you hinted at some sort of skepticism of whether it was useful or not. Is that what you feel when you're trying to push this agenda within Türkiye? Is that simply within your own institution? Can it also be with public opinion, those you've engaged with through pilot projects? I think quite often when people come to see us and talk about CBDC at the Atlantic Council GeoEconomics Center, we have people who are very enthusiastic and people who are slightly less enthusiastic. So what arguments do you use to
I think CBDCs, they sound exciting to our people in Turkey as well. But again, my question is where demand and supply will interact. Once you have this product, will it really work? Will it really be demanded? That's why we have to, all countries have to take into consideration their needs, their real needs in designing CBDCs. It could be retail versus wholesale, or cross-border versus domestic. So there are many issues to discuss.
Picking up on something you said just a few moments ago on the technical question, the ledger, what kind of technology is used. This will be discussed in many workshops today and tomorrow. Blockchain. Is it necessary for a CBDC? Are there alternatives? What would your view be?
Yeah, of course. So obviously another challenging question has been on the decentralization or centralization of CBDCs. And in this sense, so the question is whether CBDCs should rely on distributed ledger technology or opt for other centralized technologies. And the central banks find themselves tasked with determining the optimal level of centralization or decentralization. And I think this is a decision crucial for ensuring stability and security, and also the realization of policy objectives. However, the adoption of blockchain technology is still controversial. I'm sure we'll discuss this today due to the numerous challenges associated with its technology. Let's think about it together. Okay, what kind of benefits and challenges does the blockchain technology offer? Number one, blockchain-based CBDC can help increase efficiency in payments. There's no question about that. However, scalability and security issues provide a challenge in this sense, because when considering a retail CBDC, for example, if you consider it as a cash alternative to cash on a population scale, then blockchain might have some problems, satisfying those scalability needs. Number two, one of the reasons why some people might think that blockchain technology is necessary in the design of CBDC is because of the potential for, programmable money through smart contracts. But again, although I agree that being programmable is an appealing characteristic of a retail CBDC, let's remember that this could also be achieved through a set of well-defined APIs, through a layer instead of smart contracts. So I'm going to make my third and last point in this sense, and we all know that blockchain also offers to establish trust among parties when there is a lack of central authority. But if a central bank is integral to the design of a CBDC and the trust in that central authority is implicit, then the need for blockchain in a domestic retail CBDC might seem not so apparent. And therefore, this brings me to the realm of cross-border CBDCs. Because for cross-border CBDCs, you have multiple central banks and there is no single authority. And in that case, in such a scenario, trust needs to be built. And therefore, I believe that blockchain technology would be more suitable in those scenarios.
Understood. Onto a topic which already in your answers you've touched upon, which is retail versus wholesale.
Okay.
Our understanding is that Türkiye has done more research on the retail side, whereas the US, for now, the Fed is more focused on the wholesale side.
Okay.
I think we'd be curious to know whether your institution, plan on doing more work on the wholesale side, and what would justify for now your motivation for sticking to retail.
I see. So in terms of technology, in either case, there is some significant overlap in the underlying technologies. And they are both forms of digital central bank money, and this should be agnostic to the technology on which they are built. So I can say that we are effectively, as the Central Bank of Turkey, we work effectively on both types simultaneously in terms of technology. However, we are also aware of the fact that the the practical implementation of these two different types differ on many fronts. And this includes variations in the parties involved, the design or the operational issues, and the list goes on. For instance, as I mentioned before, the distributed ledger technology might be more promising for wholesale cross-border payments, and because decentralizing trust is a priority there. And certain technological challenges that blockchain has, like scalability and performance, become less critical in those settings. So these are the main issues that we consider, and in that sense, yes, every country has different needs, different perspectives on CBDCs. But as for Turkey, I believe the adoption of a digital Turkish lira would be more meaningful within the context of a wholesale CBDC if it will be used in cross-border payments, because we have a well-established digital banking infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the regional context, your neighborhood. The ECB will be speaking tomorrow at our conference.
Yeah.
The links between the Turkish economy and the Eurozone are well known. So we're curious as well how you see interoperability with specifically the digital euro. So how does their work potentially impact yours and vice versa?
Well, of course, countries in the Eurozone are primary trading partners for Turkey, and therefore we are closely watching the developments regarding the digital euro project. Although there has been no decision yet to initiate the digital euro in the near future, we know that the potential benefits to emerge in the long run, central banks should work together to for the CBDC standards and regulations to align That's one important issue to achieve interoperability, as you mentioned, and streamlined cross-border payments. Of course, it depends on if the Eurozone will be interested in cross-border transactions. Fully grasping the potential consequences of the digital euro project will take some time as the project advances, I mean, based on the restrictions that they will impose. As such, we believe that, cooperation and coordination across parties will be beneficial to have safe and good results in the future.
Hopefully this conference helps you in that direction. Another point about this conference that was made by Josh and Jennifer earlier, we're proud that it isn't just the CBDC crowd that's represented here, but other people who are interested in digital currencies, the private side. And so I think for those people, but also for everyone in the room, we'd be curious on your a quick description of how you see the landscape of cryptocurrencies and stable coins in Turkey.
Right. First of all, I can say that there is a huge interest in crypto assets. In Turkey. It holds significant potential, primarily driven by the growing interest of people in those assets for investment purposes. But as a Central Bank of Turkey, we have always had a cautious approach against crypto assets. So when we look at the short but pretty active history of cryptocurrencies, it wouldn't be wrong to label those assets as at least a huge majority of them as risky and unsafe products. That's our approach. So our stance is very similar to many other cautious regulators across the world. We recommend investors to approach them with caution and also set regulations in that regard. So in 2021, as the sole authority in Turkey's payments domain, the Central Bank of Turkey proactively issued the regulation on the disuse of crypto assets in payments. And number two, crypto asset service providers are now obligated parties for AML and SFT. They are subject to regulatory requirements and under the purview of the Financial Crimes Investigation Board in Turkey. And lastly, there is a new law on the regulation of crypto assets in the drafting process, coordinated under the Minister of Treasury and Finance. And it involves relevant financial authorities, including our central bank. So this forthcoming law is expected to provide an umbrella regulation outlining and strengthening the framework on crypto assets. And when it comes to stable coins, we are working on further structured regulations on them.
And do any of these laws, regulations impact your work on CBDC?
No.
So separate.
Yeah, separate.
Understood.
Yeah.
Back to the conversation about international standards, given that your institution has done quite a lot of work and serves as an example. At the Atlantic Council, we're very interested in fora. Through which channel, at which discussion point does this sort of influence take place? How can you serve as an example? So where do you think international standards can be established for CBDCs? Would it be through the G20 working group on payments, somewhere else?
Yeah, actually we are involved in various groups. Of course, one of them is the G20, the working groups within the G20, and FSB. We are a member of the BIS, so we do our best to contribute to all the related groups on payment systems and CBDCs. And also another approach that we have is, being open to dialogues with other central banks in conducting collaborative CBDC studies to establish international standards together. In a sense, we have also recently participated in the mBridge project as an observing member. So this also shows our interest in further international collaboration, because we really care about the importance of a global, harmonized approach, and these are the best places to work on these issues together.
Well, thank you, Deputy Governor. Please join me in thanking the Deputy Governor for her time.